Anthony Sedotto was a name that sent shivers down the spines of both the powerful and the vulnerable in the shadowy underbelly of New York City. It was a place where shadows whispered secrets and darkness concealed numerous misdeeds, and it was a place where darkness concealed countless sins. It was the kind of tale that was so ludicrous that it went beyond the realm of fiction and became a terrifying reality. His was the kind of story that defied belief. Anthony Sedotto was a guy of paradoxes. He was a mafia kingpin with the kind of charisma that could win over even the devil. When he was born in the early 20th century into a lowly Italian immigrant family, it seemed unthinkable that he would grow up to become the ruthless and clever frontman of one of the most dreaded criminal organizations in the history of the world. The residents of Little Italy were able to see him develop from a scrappy small child into a fearsome young man as he progressed through the neighborhood. Anthony, who possessed a sharp intellect and the bravery of a lion, became adept at the arts of survival and manipulation at an early age. He was so skilled at manipulating people that he could turn friends into devoted troops and foes into trembling fans. His ascent to power in the criminal underground was meteoric, despite the fact that he had to traverse the perilous waters of treachery, bloodshed, and power battles. But what genuinely distinguished Anthony from other people was his insatiable desire for control and his amazing ability to present a persona of normalcy at all times. During the day, he gave off the impression of being a loving husband and a dedicated father. He shared a quaint brownstone with his adoring wife, Isabella, and the couple's two children, Sophia and Luca. He was an expert at masking his actual character, hiding the darkness that lurked beneath the well-tailored suits and polished shoes he wore. He was a master of disguise. Anthony's illicit business continued to prosper despite the outward appearance of domestic bliss. His iron grasp over everything, from illegal gambling organizations to drug trafficking, had his competitors quaking in their boots. He controlled everything. However, it was his ability to control terror that propelled him to legendary status. He did not only demand devotion, rather he inspired it by a combination of intimidating charisma and unyielding charm. Anthony received information late one night in the smoke-filled back room of a secret club. This news caused shockwaves to be transmitted throughout his organization. A competing mafia family known as the DiCaprios had the audacity to challenge his reign as boss. It was a declaration of war that put Anthony's shrewdness and ruthlessness to the test, like they had never been put to the test before. The subsequent conflict to determine who would rule the criminal empire in New York was a vicious and murderous affair. Those who dared to stand up to Anthony Sedotto were met with lethal force, and their blood stained the streets till they flowed red. Even those who were closest to him in his inner circle were awestruck by the brilliance with which he played the game of betrayal and retribution. As the conflict continued, he formed friendships with surprising allies, which allowed him to turn the tables on the DiCaprios and put an end to their aspirations. However, the toll that his successes took on his spirit was considerable. The once charming husband and father had changed into a figure who was distant and icy. He was haunted by the ghosts of those he had slain and deceived in the past. His family was forced to face the consequences of his decisions as well, as they were in constant fear of being found out. Anthony Sedotto's control over New York City became even more ironclad after he emerged victorious in his battle against the DiCaprios. His criminal empire developed to incorporate not just the conventional rackets of extortion and illegal gambling, but also the lucrative realm of bootlegging. During the time of Prohibition, his speakeasies gained a reputation for extravagance and exclusivity, which attracted the most influential people in the city to become entangled in his web of power. However, Anthony's already ravenous appetite for power was only stoked by his successes. His goals had no limits whatsoever. He started engaging in increasingly ambitious criminal endeavors, such as counterfeiting and even infiltrating legitimate enterprises through extortion and manipulation. He did this by gaining their trust and then taking advantage of them. It was difficult for the city's law enforcement authorities, which were already compromised by his influence, to keep up with the ever-evolving criminal strategies that he employed. On the other hand, there is a proverb that says, "The higher you climb, the harder you fall." The emergence of Anthony Sedotto was not gone ignored by anyone. The pursuit of him being being brought to justice by federal agents, commanded by the tenacious Elliot Mitchell, had been designated as their primary objective. Mitchell was a formidable opponent, who was famous for his unwavering commitment to cleaning up the streets of New York City. The cat-and-mouse game that Anthony and Mitchell were playing was a spectacular show that drew the attention of everyone in the city. As the two men engaged in a ferocious competition for leadership, the press dubbed it the Battle of Titans, and it received that moniker. Mitchell pursued Anthony with a zest that bordered on obsession, intent on uncovering the man's true nature and bringing him to justice after he had evaded the law for such a long time. Anthony Sedotto's paranoia increased as the noose drew tighter around him, as the situation became increasingly dire. His charisma, which had been unshakable for so long, began to weaken, and the fractures in the well-constructed facade he had created started to emerge. He cut himself off from his family because he couldn't take the thought of using them as pawns in his risky game, so he removed himself from them. The confrontation between Anthony and Mitchell reached its pinnacle on one of those calamitous nights. Mitchell and his crew were able to locate the core of Anthony's operations, thanks to information provided by a source that wished to remain anonymous. The dramatic raid that followed was followed by a violent clash that would be remembered throughout history. As Anthony's kingdom fell apart around him, people began shooting at each other and spilling blood. In the end, it was Mitchell who cornered him, staring directly into the eyes of the guy he had been chasing after for years. It was revealed that Anthony Sedotto was a man who had been driven to insanity by his unquenchable need for power and control. The true story of Anthony Sedotto was laid naked for all to see. A collective sigh of relief could be heard throughout the city as the morning light revealed Anthony Sedotto being carried away in handcuffs and his once powerful enterprise being reduced to ashes. The insane, true story of Anthony Sedotto had reached its conclusion, and he had left behind a legacy that included crime, ambition, and the unavoidable repercussions of a life lived on the edge. As time went on, the story of Anthony Sedotto became a cautionary tale for anyone who dared to venture down the hazardous path of organized crime. But as the years passed, the legend of Anthony Sedotto faded into memory. His name became synonymous with a devil that could engulf anyone, no matter how seductive or crafty they were. The narrative of Anthony Sedotto has been preserved throughout the annals of history as a witness to the terrible cost of power's pursuit, as well as the seductive appeal of power itself. It was a narrative that would never be forgotten, a terrifying reminder that the line between hero and villain, sanity and lunacy, might be as thin as a razor's edge in the world of crime and ambition. It was a story that would never be forgotten. It was a story that would never be forgotten. As Anthony Sedotto languished in a prison cell, the world outside moved on. His family, once held captive by his dark reign, found a semblance of normalcy. Isabella, his wife, devoted herself to raising their children far away from the shadows of the past. Sophia and Luca grew up with a burning desire to distance themselves from the legacy of their infamous father. And so, the tale of Anthony Sedotto came to its end, a story of power and its consequences, ambition and its price. In the hushed conversations of those who remembered, his name would forever be synonymous with the insanity of a life lived on the precipice. The insane, true story of Anthony Sedotto served as a stark reminder that in the end, even the most cunning and charismatic of men could not escape the reckoning of their deeds. And that's it for this video. Subscribe if you want to watch more.